Friends, hello everyone. Alexander Stepanenko is with you. I have been living in Turkey for more than 3 years and working in the Turkish real estate market. Let's talk to you today about how you can buy an apartment or any other residential or commercial property in Turkey remotely. That is, not by coming directly to the country of Turkey itself, but by doing it from the country in which you are currently located. Here it is immediately worth dividing the purchase of real estate into two types. The first is the purchase of real estate in a facility under construction. The second is the purchase of real estate in an already constructed building. Let's compare these two purchasing methods point by point and see what features and nuances there are for each of them. Once you have selected a property, you will be asked to enter into a purchase and sale agreement. If you buy an apartment in a project under construction directly from the developer, then, as a rule, you sign a detailed and extensive contract of more than 10 pages. This agreement must be in at least 2 languages, Turkish and English. Any other language can also be added. Combinations of Turkish and English may vary depending on client requirements, but the terms of the contract in Turkish are mandatory. It is the information in the contract in Turkish that is basic and decisive in case of any possible clarifications or disagreements in the future. Let's look at a standard contract from a construction company and pay attention to its main points. Let's go in order. At the beginning, general information about the property and its location is indicated. Then, fill in information about the parties to the purchase and sale of real estate, the seller and the buyer. If the buyer purchases an apartment through an intermediary, that is, a real estate agency, then information about this agency is also added here. If the buyer purchases the property directly from the developer, then this clause is absent from the contract. Next, more detailed information about the object of purchase itself is indicated, an apartment or something else. Then, along the way, all the main options and technical characteristics that should be present inside your apartment and the building in which it is located are indicated, as well as the entire territory of the residential complex as a whole. Next comes the amount itself and the terms of payment for the property. Then, the bank details of the construction company to which you will need to make a money transfer. Then, the rights and obligations of the parties. The deadlines for delivery of the property, the rules and procedure for resolving possible financial issues, including force majeure, and so on, are indicated here. Also, if the apartment is purchased by the buyer through a real estate agency, then the responsibilities of such an intermediary are also specified separately. Afterwards, in a separate paragraph, the conditions for possible termination of the contract are prescribed. All financial costs and expenses borne by the parties to this agreement are indicated below. Finally, general information about the contract is written down, as well as ways to resolve possible disagreements and disputes between the buyer and seller. At the very end, the parties to this agreement put their signatures and exchange signed copies by sending them to each other electronically. If necessary and at the request of the buyer, the construction company sends the original signed contract by mail to the address specified by the buyer. Perhaps in my next video, I will separately and in more detail examine the topic of all the points that are present in the purchase and sale agreement between the buyer and seller of real estate in Turkey. If you would like to familiarize yourself with such an agreement directly, then write to me on WhatsApp at this number and I will send you a sample of this agreement in the form of a PDF file. As for the purchase and sale agreement between the buyer and the real estate agency, such an agreement, as a rule, has the simplest possible content and is located on one page. It contains only the most general information, such as information about the seller and buyer, the value of the property, the terms of payment of commissions to the real estate agency, as well as some rights and obligations of the parties. Here, I would immediately like to highlight the fact that, in the overwhelming majority of cases, such agency agreements are concluded on already finished real estate. In view of this, there is no particular reason to prescribe some points, such as characteristics of the apartment and residential complex, since the buyer can independently record all these facts. Methods and terms of payment, since finished real estate is always purchased on 100% payment terms, with very rare exceptions. Deadlines for delivery of the property and so on, although, in my opinion, real estate agencies could include more information in such contracts, at least regarding the payment procedure and their time frame, and so on. Because of this, sometimes some disagreements and misunderstandings may arise between the countries of such a treaty. At the same time, I am aware that it is unlikely that any changes in this regard are possible, since this type of agreement has been approved by all government bodies in Turkey, which are authorized to control and regulate this type of activity for this type of private business. Further, after you have concluded an agreement, you have several main ways for direct acquisition, that is, obtaining a tap for real estate. The main thing here is that you must directly come to the Republic of Turkey at the location of your property, and already carry out all the necessary further actions here, together with your agent. The second additional option is that you must also come to Turkey, at least one day, and draw up a power of attorney for an individual. As a rule, this can be the manager of a construction company or real estate agency through which you purchase an apartment. The third, theoretically possible, but in practice quite difficult to implement method, is to issue a power of attorney remotely. That is, through the Turkish consulate in the country from which you plan to purchase real estate. My clients have asked me this question many times, but in practice, no one has ever managed to carry out such an operation. At the same time, I heard several times that some clients managed to do this. As I understand it, the clarity of the request to the consulate itself, with the provision of a specific example of a power of attorney for the provision of this service, will play a significant role here, and also the country itself from which you want to order this service. It is also worth considering the fact that if you purchased real estate through a construction company with installment payment, then you can begin the procedure for obtaining TAPU only after 100% payment for the real estate. Next, you must collect all the necessary documents and pay taxes and expenses to apply for a tapu. Here, I will not dwell in great detail on all the documents and expenses so that this video does not turn out to be too long. In the future, most likely, I will also make a separate issue on this topic. Now, I will only say that when buying and registering an apartment in Turkey, you only need a foreign passport, which must expire no earlier than 6 months at the time of the transaction. You do all the rest of the documentation directly here in Turkey, in the local municipal authorities, together with your manager, regarding the amount that you will need to obtain a tapu for an apartment. In addition, of course, to the cost of the property you are purchasing, today, for apartments with layouts from 1+1 to 3+1, on average, this amount can be about $2,000. The amount can and will depend on the cadastral value of your apartment, a 4% tax on which you will have to pay to the state upon purchase. That's it. After you have collected all the documents and paid all the payments, you and your manager submit these documents to the cadastral department of the area to which your property is assigned. After that, we just have to wait. Typically, this wait can take about 5 to 10 calendar days, from 5 to 10. Basically, the period may depend on the proper operation of all government accounting systems that affect the issuance of TAPU. Sometimes such systems do not work very stably, as well as the work of the cadastral department of Turkey itself, depending on its location. That is, in which province and region of Turkey are you purchasing real estate? That, in principle, is all you need to know about buying real estate in Turkey. Now all that remains is to wait for an invitation to the Turkish Cadastral Department, where you, in the presence of a translator, will put your signature in a special accounting journal. And in a few minutes, you will receive your document on the ownership of real estate, which is called TAPU. After this, you will be able to arrange utilities, pay some other minor fees, and so on. But this is definitely a topic for a separate video. If this video was useful for you, then like it and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss other useful information about real estate in Turkey and more. Also, you can write all your questions and wishes about the topics of my future videos that you would like to see on my channel. You can tell me about this in the comments or in private messages to the WhatsApp number that you now see on your screen. That's it. Thank you all for your attention. Alexander Stepanenko was with you. See you again.